Welcome guys to your Fatal Offences revision video. The aim of this video is to essentially give you a skeleton overview of fatal offences. Towards the end of the video there's an exam question. It's a past paper question which is then analysed. Various topics are drawn out, and then a type of model answer is also given. So my advice would be to essentially, when we get to that end of the video, you might want to pause, write something down, and start and so on. The first bit of the video, I'm going to be very quickly giving you a skeleton overview of fatal offences. Now you can see that fatal offences involve all crimes, so this is criminal, all crimes which involve the killing of a person. So someone dies. So when you're looking at the scenario question and someone has died, straight away in your brain you should be thinking, okay, this is a homicide, this is a fatal offence. The chapters of interest from the textbook are chapter 5 to 7: murder, voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter. Yeah, it's very important to remember that voluntary manslaughter is a partial defence to murder. So the chances are, if you're going to talk about murder, you're going to by default talk about a type of voluntary manslaughter. What's also important to know at this point is that the general defences do apply. So you've got the partial defences of voluntary manslaughter, but the overarching general defences which are available in criminal law also apply. So they are self-defense, necessity, intoxication, automatism, and so on. So that's one thing I'd say from the outset. Don't just look from the prosecution point of view when answering a scenario question. Also consider the defences, and that if you're doing a 30 marker, that's like 7 or 8 marks there at least. So make sure you know your general defences. Okay, right, moving along. Murder. Homicide is a term used to describe the lawful killing of a human being. So you have homicide, and you have murder and manslaughter. Now some of you will be like, what's the difference between murder and manslaughter? Essentially, murder, you need the actus reus and the mens rea. Now manslaughter, you also have actus reus and mens rea. If you think about voluntary manslaughter, the actus reus and the mens rea are very similar to that of murder. The way to distinguish them, I believe, is through sentencing. Yeah, for murder you'll get a mandatory life sentence, and the chances are for manslaughter you'll get a discretionary sentence. And you can discuss that in the exam. You can say there's a chance this person could be charged with murder, however they could go for the partial defence of voluntary manslaughter, and then discuss how the discretion of that sentence is normally left to the judge. Then you can talk about pre-sentencing reports. You can also talk about aggravating and mitigating factors. What's different about the new specification is that there's a more holistic approach in answering a question. So any knowledge that you have which is relevant, you should actually mention, because that will get you extra marks. Okay? So you've got voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter, and then those are broken down into 4 further separate subtopics. So under voluntary manslaughter you have loss of control and diminished responsibility. So you meant to do it, yeah, just as you would a murder. You have the actus reus and the mens rea. Someone's died, actus reus. Mens rea, you meant to do it, but you lost control. That's your argument. You lost control. Then you have diminished responsibility. Yeah, you meant to do it, but you didn't have the right frame of mind. Now, when you're looking at scenario questions, think about this. If they say someone's died and that person was wound up in a way where they lost control, or they were female and they had been bullied by their husband, or the other way around these days works as well, you can then start to recognise what they're trying to get at. So you'll have to discuss murder first, then possibly say that there's an option for voluntary manslaughter, partial defence, and loss of control. And diminished responsibility, look for a medical illness. It's not just this person was having a bad day. Yeah, you have to look for a medical illness, something that doctors can verify that was wrong. Involuntary manslaughter, you have, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. Involuntary manslaughter, you have unlawful act manslaughter, and you have gross negligent manslaughter. So involuntary manslaughter, you're saying that a person's died, but you didn't mean to kill them. Yeah, so you can see there's a difference in the mens rea. Unlawful act manslaughter, the mens rea for that is not that you wanted to kill someone. The mens rea for that is you had the mens rea for an unlawful act. So, for example, you know, you get the one punch killings where you say, okay, I just wanted to punch the person in and scare them a bit. Yeah, you could say, oh look, that is an assault. Yeah, ABH, which has led to death. So it's unlawful act manslaughter. Right? Now, on the other hand, you've got gross negligent manslaughter. Sorry, guys. Gross negligent manslaughter is saying the mens rea you need for that is for the negligence. Yeah. And the possibility, slight possibility that it could lead to something worse. It's not like if you had the mens rea for killing, then it would be murder, wouldn't it? Yeah, or voluntary manslaughter. Yeah, so let's just be clear. Voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter are two very different things, and they will give off certain signals in an exam. Loss of control, or someone's very angry, they've been wound up, and there's been a series of events which has led them to behaving in such a manner. Diminished responsibility, you look for a medical illness which affects their rationality. Unlawful act manslaughter, look for a smaller crime which leads to death. Right, and then gross negligent manslaughter, establish a duty of care which is breached, which causes the damage of death. Yeah, right, I'm going to stop this video now here before I go any further.